Welcome to the Lean Blog Podcast. Visit our website at www.leanblog.org. Now, here's your host, Mark Graban.
Hi, this is Mark Graban. Welcome to episode 271 of the podcast. It is January 11th, 2017. Joining me today is Isaac Mitchell. He's going to be talking with me about lean design for healthcare, the Society for Health Systems, and other topics. Isaac is a full-time lean practitioner at East Tennessee Children's Hospital. He's a lecturer at the University of Tennessee's Department of Industrial and Systems Engineering, and he's also an instructor for the Institute of Industrial and Systems Engineers. So you can read his bio. You can find a link to a lot of bonus material for this podcast if you go to leanblog.org/271. You can view and download the PDF of a conference poster on lean design that Isaac mentions in the podcast. You can read a special PDF excerpt of my book, Lean Hospitals, that includes the Etch case study that Isaac helped me with and talked about in the episode. So if you want all of that, again, go to leanblog.org/271. Before we get into the episode, just want to ask one favor. If you enjoy the podcast, please go to iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher, anywhere else you are subscribing and listening to podcasts through. Leave a review if you can rate the podcast. Hopefully you'll give us a top star rating. If you have any feedback or comments, you can share them on those platforms. Or if you have any other feedback, you can always email me, mark@leanblog.org. Thanks for listening. And now here's Isaac Mitchell. Isaac, hi. Thank you for joining us here today on the podcast.
Thanks, Mark, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
So if you can start off, introduce yourself, and we'll get into your background a little more, but talk about your current role, and then we'll kind of go backward from there. How's that?
That sounds great. So in my current role at East Tennessee Children's Hospital, I'm the Director of Lean Continuous Improvement. I've been here for about 7 years now, and it's been a great 7 years. This is my first stint into healthcare. Again, my background started in industry, automotive, and then I got really interested several years ago about applications of process improvement, lean work in healthcare, and made the jump here. So it's been a great 7 years. I get involved with all types of work with my role. I really kind of act as an internal consultant, getting pulled in on different projects. But we do all types of work. We're really working on the people development side and creating the management systems at Children's Hospital support all this improvement work we're doing. And then, again, a lot of project work, which we're going to talk about today. A big piece would be a lot of lean design work with our new tower addition here at Children's Hospital.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably do a whole separate podcast on the other lean work, the lean management system work. But yeah, I'm happy we're going to be able to focus, at least for today, on lean design. We can always do a follow-up episode and kind of take a deeper dive into some of that, perhaps.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
So you're working now in healthcare. For the listeners, may or may not know, I'm an industrial engineer. Isaac's an industrial engineer. We've crossed paths through the Society for Health Systems, which is part of the Institute of Industrial and Systems Engineers. Can you talk a little bit about some of the early days in your career and where you got started, I guess, like I did also, in the auto industry?
Great. Well, I'll step back just a little bit. I actually learned about industrial engineering and almost stumbled across it. I actually had a summer job when I turned 16 at a textile factory. And I had the distinguished job of working on a hot knife machine. And the pajama pants that people wear with the drawstrings, that was my job, was to cut out those drawstrings for 8 hours a day. So, but I learned about industrial engineering because the plant manager was an industrial engineer, and we got to talk about his career, what he did, and what his background was. And that's really what that I firsthand learned about the field and really sparked my interest into what industrial engineers do. So that was a neat job because it really changed my career path and studies and got into the field. And that was just a great learning experience and has really stuck with me throughout my career. Getting to work on the front line and experience what workers go through throughout the day, and seeing what's good, what's bad. And I learned a lot from that plant manager. He was a really nice gentleman and always rounded on employees and made sure everything was all right, anything we can do to help. And just a great mentor from the beginning that introduced me into that. From there, I went to school for industrial engineering at University of Tennessee and got introduced to Lean at UT, and really became inundated with Toyota and Toyota Production Systems. So that's actually where I decided to have my first job role at Toyota, and focused all my efforts on getting a job there. And that's actually where I started my first job right out of college. So as an industrial engineering type role.
Well, it's we kind of delve into that a little bit more. It sounds like two very interesting perspectives that not everybody has the benefit of. I guess working on the front lines of manufacturing, doing that sort of repetitive work, and having an appreciation for that, and then having an opportunity to learn directly from Toyota is an opportunity a lot of people didn't have. So what were some of the key lessons, some of the unique takeaways from your time at Toyota that maybe sometimes people don't get taught, don't get exposed to, when they learn about Lean in different settings?
Toyota was just an outstanding learning experience. Of course, I had read, all the books, Lean Thinking, the Toyota Way, before I had started there, but to see it firsthand, again, was just a unique experience. And, they write about a lot of these things in the book, but you can't really understand it until I think you're in there and living it. One of the things that has really stuck with me that, again, I carry on with me today is this constant culture of reflection at Toyota. I remember finishing my first big project at Toyota, and it was reducing the number of engineering change requests that we were receiving on replacement parts. And, I reduced it by 10% for North America, and I was just so happy about the project. And I finished my presentation, and the very first thing my mentor and my boss there asked me is, first, what did you learn from this project? And that's just such a unique question that you don't always hear from a lot of organizations. It's more like, good job, we're really proud of you. And they were proud of me, but they also wanted to know what I learned from the project and what I would do differently next time. And it was really, I think, them starting to teach me to be a thinker, a thinking problem solver. And that was one of the biggest things, that's that constant culture of reflection and being humble and getting better day in and day out, that culture of continuous improvement. And then it was just neat to be a part of that.
Yeah, because, there's so often, just this drive for results and get results and get more results. And I think it's I don't know if it's not quite ironic. I'm misusing the word like Alanis Morissette did maybe, but, Toyota, would you agree that, by taking that time to reflect, making that investment, making investment in developing people. I think the idea is that that's an investment that pays off and leads to better performance, right?
Absolutely. And then, just another thing that, my leaders there, they never directly gave me answers. They were always coaching me through the problem and really helping me develop these critical thinking skills. And that's something that has been extremely beneficial throughout my my journey of learning about Lean and the type of work that we do.
And so then, I'm sure you have opportunities to bring some of these lessons, because this is not. We're probably preaching to the choir to our audience here, but that Lean and the Toyota Production System is not about a better way to build cars. It's a culture and a style of leadership, and there are methods that are so transferable, and I'm sure you have stories and lessons that you can tell people there at the hospital. But there's that common response. People will say in healthcare, yeah, but patients aren't cars, and it's sort of an obvious and true statement. How often do you hear forms of that question? How do you respond and engage with people who are raising that concern?
Yeah, I think most people in our field have probably heard that question in some form or fashion, or we're different, things like that. I really start to question myself. Why is this person asking this question? What is their thought process? Where have we gotten to the point where we have kind of gone down different paths where we're not aligned anymore? And I try to step back and understand why is that person asking that question? Where are we missing? What's off? And I really just try to go back with, yes, I understand people are not cars. That's not what I say, but what are some of your concerns about the work we're working on, or where do you see that there might be some issues or opportunities? So really just starting some really open-ended, humble inquiry questions to say, where are we missing? What's the difference from where we're at, and what are some of your concerns with the work we're doing? And start that conversation from there. Because, like you said, it's an obvious question with that's pointed, but I'm really trying to understand their thinking behind why they're asking it and go from there.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the right. I mean, that's a great approach. It seemed like a good lesson, perhaps from Toyota of asking why, seeking to understand. I guess that's a little Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
Seek first to understand. Because I think a lot of times people have legitimate concerns, and we have this discussion and say, well, tell me what's this concern? We say we can't turn the hospital into a factory, and they say, well, we don't want to be rushing through patient care. And we're like, well, of course not. We're I think generally, as you have these discussions, you can find out that there's strong alignment between what people want in healthcare and lean. There a lot of times they're already feeling rushed, and lean, I think, provides an alternative to get out of that situation as opposed to making it worse.
Absolutely. And I think another variation in that question is, there's so much variation in healthcare. How can we apply these things that are in repetitive manufacturing to healthcare? And, again, I like to point out, are there things that we can, that are similar processes day in and day out? And can we look at improving those so we can free up staff's capacity and thinking ability to take care of those situations that we can't control and take care of those issues in the moment? So I think that's another kind of conversation or response to that question to help, kind of change the thinking just a little bit.
Yeah. So, kind of stepping back and reflecting, I'll ask you to reflect now. In your 7 years of working in healthcare, some of the other things you've learned, and maybe also touch on some of the results that the hospital, the staff, all of you working together have been able to accomplish.
There's been so many things that I've learned, and so many great projects that I've had the opportunity to work on. I think with healthcare, moving from the manufacturing industry, just learning about the culture of healthcare, the culture at a specific facility, the culture between groups. A nurse is not a nurse. There's a intensive care nurse. There's an emergency room nurse. There is a inpatient nurse, and they all are driven by similar things, but also have different personalities. You have to tailor your approach to improvements based on their work culture and their situation. So I think learning that over the 7 years has been really beneficial to some of the work I do. Understanding what's important to people, getting them involved, and making sure when you're making improvements on projects, you're taking into account what is important to them and getting them involved in projects. But we've worked on a wide variety of projects at Children's. Just to highlight, a few, some of my favorite work that we've done here has been really sparked by your book, Healthcare Kaizen, where 5 or 6 years ago, we started implementing these unit-based continuous improvement boards. And this is really a people development side of Lean. We're a small Lean department, and to be honest, we're quite all right with that, because our role as a lean department is to develop people to solve problems independently on their own and create these problem solvers throughout the hospital, not to have, a task force of highly trained, purple belts or black belts or whatever you want to call those people, go out and solve all these problems for them. We have people that are dedicated to the work, understand the work, but also understand how to problem solve and have the environment and the management system that supports it. So, we've implemented these continuous improvement board, the huddle boards, and pretty much every department in the hospital. Staff meet around these boards, talk about their ideas. Staff members on the front line are leading projects and seeing great results. So those have been certainly, every time I see a project completed that's sustained and I've had nothing to do with it, that's what really makes me happy, to see that work being grown throughout the hospital.
Mm-hmm. And when you have successes, I guess that helps make the case for people that that lean is applicable. They can see it through their own participation, creating better care, better patient experience, better workplace environment. That's probably the greatest proof to let people learn by doing and convince themselves rather than having to just tell them, right?
Absolutely. And I think having the dedicated resource in each department, that understands this, and they are teaching the front line. It's not learning this lean tool from Isaac the engineer. It's learning this improvement problem-solving methodology from Bill the nurse, and I'm here to support the Bill the nurse to help the frontline staff in doing their improvement work. So I think that goes to help speed up the progress as well. I'll tell you other things that have been really beneficial here at Children's Hospital. I had the opportunity to add a team member to my team, Marty Jordan, and I think at her conferences, she's an RN training, and she's just been an outstanding resource to bridge the gap between, what I have learned in the manufacturing field, moving into healthcare, and she is able to work directly with frontline staff because she's worked as an ER nurse for 10 years and understands what it's like to be there, and shows them, this stuff is applicable, this is how we do it, I understand what you're going through, and we're going to guide you through this. So I think finding that resource is helpful.
Yeah, you read my mind because I just jotted down here. I was going to ask you about Marty because we've met a number of times, and I knew she had a nursing background. I think it's really powerful when you have a combination of backgrounds. Lean. It's never about an engineer or an outsider coming in to fix you. It's it's working together with people, nurses and medical technologists and doctors and pharmacists and whatever background. It's easier for them to learn lean than it is for us to become a clinician, I think.
Absolutely. So that's really then, the people development side that's been a great part of my work here at Children's over the past 5-6 years doing that. But of course, there's the tangible and the intangible kind of project work that we do. I feel like we've had some great successes with some project work. One of my favorite ones is a project that was actually led by a frontline staff team in the PICU, and they were actually able to redesign the direct admit process and reduce patients' length of stay by from 17 hours to 10 hours by really evaluating the process, mapping it out, looking at what's value added versus non-value added, and getting rid of those non-value added steps. So the patient was only here for 10 hours, get what they needed, and then go home and be back with their family. So that was a great one.
And I imagine from some of that improvement work, let's shift and talk about some of the lean design work instead of improving an existing process. I think part of what's exciting about lean design is creating something from a blank slate, taking a fresh look at everything, reinventing the space and the workflows. How did that work lead into lean design? Can you tell the story about you had this opportunity, the hospital is building a new tower. What led to what prompted being able to do this, getting the support to do this in a quote unquote lean design approach instead of the traditional way?
Absolutely. So I was very fortunate. I felt like I've been very fortunate at a couple of my jobs to be involved with a new building project. Of course, this was my first one in healthcare, and I've also done one in manufacturing. but I think I'm very fortunate here at East Tennessee Children's Hospital that a lot of the convincing or things that I hear a lot of people having to go through, I've not had that issue. We've got a very forward-thinking senior administration, CEO, Keith Goodwin, and he has come to me and say, hey, we're going to do this in a lean manner, and we were on board from the very beginning. So I'm very fortunate here at Children's to have that, and we really have been involved. Once the decision was made to build, we were really involved after that in the project 4 or 5 years ago, working with the architects, working with staff from across the hospital. Everyone that was affected by the change was in there with the meetings with the architects through each design phase of the process and going through it. So great opportunity. It really started with the schematic design, looking at what services were going over there, and how we wanted to lay out these services. It was, again, a brand new opportunity. This new tower at East Tennessee Children's Hospital holds the NICU, neonatal intensive care unit, brand new perioperative space for surgery, and then lots of great clinic space for our families around the East Tennessee region. But really starting from day one and just saying, what would be your ideal, and working with the teams from concept to completion to make this happen. So, a few examples of that was the schematic design where we actually started building what you alluded to earlier. We called it Cardboard City, where we started with the architects from Shepley Bullfinch and built individual rooms for each area out of cardboard. They printed out pictures of monitors, power outlets, all the things that you could possibly need in the room. And then we had teams in there playing around with the space, moving items where they needed to go, constructing cabinets, and really getting all the things together with cardboard instead of drywall and electrical once we opened. So, and we found some great catches with this work.
Little details that might have been overlooked otherwise, right?
Yeah, one of the ones that really sticks out to me is things like power outlets beside family couches and chairs so they can plug up their cell phones, things like that just tiny catches that people find that we don't, once you're in healthcare, you kind of stick to this healthcare thinking, but you sometimes step out of what the patient and the family's going through, and they're there to remind you, hey, this would be great to have this. I was in this room for a long time, and I'd love to have this power outlet. I'd love to have a little space to put my suitcase, or just small things like that come out when you have these cross-functional teams working together.
And you mentioned the architect, and were they chosen because of support for this lean design approach and this different way of working together, involving hospital staff, working with the hospital to kind of, co-develop solutions instead of, I think, the more traditional mode is, the architect is the expert and sort of tells you, here's how you should build it. Can you talk about that relationship with the architects?
Absolutely. I think it takes it is a different way to approach, and it takes a different mindset of architecture-led design to really almost customer-led design to what we were doing here. So it was, there are a lot of, discussions back and forth between, doctors and the architects, or the nurses and architects, or patients and families and architects, having conversations about what they would like to see, or different things like that. So I think it does take a unique firm to be able to accommodate this approach to really focusing and working together to come up with the final design of the product. So, and I think, pushing back and having an architecture firm that's fine with that, we found some big catches. One of the biggest ones was how the column grid was laid out in our pre-post section of perioperative services surgery area. There were 11 rooms that had columns in the center of the head wall, and that really limited the space for the beds that could be put in there, because it would really limit movement of the staff in the room. And we modeled this with all the different beds we have in the hospital, where the different columns would land in the rooms, and we shared our findings with the architects, and they took those findings and they relaid out the rooms to avoid having columns at the head walls. And just small things like that that could have been disastrous on day one were avoided by, investing this time in our staff and building these cardboard cities that we call them to find these type of things.
Yeah, and there are some pictures, and for the listeners, I want to thank Isaac and the hospital for cooperating, collaborating, me sharing a case study and a few pictures that are in the third edition of Lean Hospitals that was released back in June. You can see a picture of one of the mock-ups from a cardboard city room looking to a patient room from a nurse's station. So I'm actually going to be posting a PDF of that part of the chapter on the blog post for this episode. But yeah, it's really I think it's always exciting to see the mock-up process. I think it's probably more time consuming. It's an investment in the length of that planning project. It's an investment of people's time, but every single instance that I've been involved in or visited a hospital, everyone's got their stories about what we discovered, what we didn't anticipate. It was easier to change the cardboard than drywall. I don't know if it's possible to say that this is the new conventional wisdom for healthcare design, but it certainly is becoming. Thankfully, I think we're seeing more of this.
Absolutely. And then we did a lot of schematic design. We did some neat stuff with modeling our capacity needs. I used some really basic spreadsheet modeling in Excel, and we had a lot of concerns because we were completely changing how we approach surgery. In the past, a patient would be assigned a room for the entire day, and that would be their room. And when they were done with it, even if they were done with it at 10 in the morning, that room would not be occupied for the rest of the day. So in this new design, we're having to flip these rooms around and use them throughout the day. And there were lots of concerns from clinical staff that we're not sure if this is work. We're not sure if we have enough rooms. We're not sure if we have enough ORs. And just doing some really basic modeling, looking at where the patients would be throughout the day in Excel and showing them timestamps at 15-minute increments. It eased a lot of minds and fears from staff that this design will work, and it's kind of validated ahead of time, and we could get past that hurdle of this is new and scary versus okay, this is a different approach, it's going to work. Now let's really get into the process design and talk about all the details of how it's going to really work once we start. So.
Yeah, and if people are going to ask, how do we know this is going to work? That sets the bar really high, right? I mean, we can do our best to plan and anticipate if something is going to work, but at some point there's no substitute for trying. And so you had the cardboard mock-ups. Was there a cardboard equivalent of the process to allow people to sort of test this out before the doors opened when patients started coming in?
Absolutely. So one of the things we said, when we started this, if we can change the process today before we move into the new building, we are going to do it. So really over the past 2 years, we've really been deep into the process redesign. Anything that we could change outside of the physical, building itself, we have been modifying and making improvements to prepare for that move in the new space. And we've had a lot of help. I've had a great mentor, Jen Dieter with JKA Consulting, that has helped us out with this drastic process redesign. And she's just done a great job getting the teams together and walking us through it. Again, been a great mentor for me to help with this dynamic change. But one of the biggest things we did is, believe it or not, we are in the same hospital. We were 2 floors apart from where the patient was prepped and recovered versus where they were in surgery 2 floors above. And we were actually on different EMR modules. So a nurse in the OR could not see what was going on the pre-post area in the old system. So this was a big thing that we worked through, combining these modules in the EMR so we share information and can give status of where the patient is and create priority about what's going on. And the team really worked together with Jen and all the different areas, and not only just combined the modules, but stepped back and said, hey, why are we doing it this way? Do we need to ask all these questions? Do we need to have repetitive questions? And this is where we got patients and families involved. We heard from our families. They said, hey, you guys give outstanding clinical care, but we hear the same question over and over 4 or 5 times, duplicate questions. What's going on here? And the reason it was because none of our systems talk to each other internally.
Yeah.
So we really had to step back and look at what's going on. Do we need to do these questions and combine these systems so we can all talk and share information? And this is one of the biggest changes that we've had even before we've opened the doors in the new facility. After we combined those modules and really got down to the questions that we had to ask, we reduced the total number of questions by a little over 60%. And duplicate questions by 85%.
Wow.
And when you think about that, think about what the patients and families are seeing. I mean, it's just a night and day difference. They see teams working together. They don't see repetitive questions. Mm-hmm. It's a much more peaceful environment. And, one of my favorite stories was I was sharing some of the results of the Family Advisory Council. And one of the family members raised their hand and said, I want to tell you about my experience at Children's Hospital. And I kind of froze up there. I was like, is this going to be good or bad?
Right.
And we got everybody in the room. We've got, important people in the room.
Yeah.
And he said, I was here with my child. We've been here a lot for, we have to come for several surgeries for my child's condition. And I actually called my wife and told her, said, you won't believe this. This is night and day difference. It's very calm. The nurse has a lot more time to spend with me. They're not asking the same questions over and over again. And it was just a great story to hear, just even before we moved, coming from our families, that they could tell the difference noticeably right away. And you see it in the numbers, not only percentages, but our times to prep a patient for surgery, from the time they arrived to the time they were ready for surgery, were at an hour and an hour and 34 minutes. And just this week, we are averaging around 38 minutes to process a patient, get them ready for surgery from beginning to finish. So, or beginning to a time for operation. So it's just really reassuring to see those, and again, do all this work that we can before we actually move into space.
Yeah. Well, it's one thing to see data and a chart on the wall, but I'm sure for staff and leaders, it's got to be really so gratifying to hear the stories and the reaction directly from the families of the before and after, and it's not just measurably better, but in healthcare, I think it's important. This is different than manufacturing. The feelings matter. It feels better. And people are happier and less frustrated, and it's pretty basic human emotion, but it's so important, I think, in a healthcare setting for people to be reminded of that.
Yeah, and I think, the other story I'd like to share is just from the nurse's perspective. In the past, they were literally sitting at the computer, staring at the computer, asking questions, and they were missing that interaction with the patient. The reason they went to school to become a nurse, to take care of, people. Mm-hmm. And, the nurse, after we made this change, she's like, it doesn't feel like I'm doing my job anymore. But then I stepped back and I thought about it. Well, now I have time to actually build that relationship with that patient. I'm not clicking through screens on our EMR. I'm not asking, 60% erroneous questions that don't need to be asked. That time to build that relationship with that patient. And that was just another, great win, that we had from our side as we started to redesign this process. So moving forward, we still have lots of work to do, and we're very fortunate. The building is complete. We have moved in NICU in our clinics, and surgery opens in March. So we even have more time to practice in the new space. We're working on things like signaling and communication between the OR and the pre-post room. So we're going to have a lot of opportunity to really play around and be ready to hit the ground running on day one.
Yeah, and so some of this is update from when that case study was written just a little over a year ago at this point, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It says here in the chapter, maybe one other thing to ask you to elaborate on. It says here that from your initial lean design work and the mock-ups that you're developing a more formal 3P process or production preparation process. Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit and what that means for, let's say, the next opportunities you have to build or redesign space?
Absolutely. I mean, I think with any design, you'll always hopefully learn from it and reflect, like we were talking about earlier, and talk about how you can improve and do better next time. And I think with anything, it would have been great to have finalized processes in place before we actually finalized the design. That wasn't always the case with our building. So I think the biggest reflection is maybe if given the opportunity, really dial in that process ahead of time before you finalize any design to get the design to fit specific needs of what you're trying to accomplish there.
Well, and boy, there's that Toyota habit coming back again. What you learned along the way here, the lessons learned.
Absolutely.
That's become quite a habit, it seems.
Absolutely, and it's just something that stuck with me, and then going back to what I learned at that first job when I was 16 years old, working on a factory line, just this constant respect for the people that do the work and getting their input involved. Even in these rooms of 20, 30 people, there would be times where we didn't have one field of medicine in there, and maybe we missed out on something they needed that we had to go back and retrofit into the space. So we had a few of those things go on, but there's always something. But just moving forward for the next one, making sure we're thinking through who all is affected by this change and have they come in and had input on it. So almost need like a checklist in each defined design phase, who's affected and have they seen this and approve of what's going on.
I guess it's a way of error-proofing against the mistake of forgetting to involve a stakeholder in something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One other thing I was going to ask is a follow-up from the case study here. What progress have you made on the idea of level loading, scheduling, or the flow of patients? The traditional hospital approach is still practiced in a lot of settings of kind of asking everyone to come in early, and they're scheduled for a day, but they're not scheduled for a precise slot. I saw this when I was in Thailand recently. The operating rooms essentially did what hospitals here would call as follows scheduling, and there's a lot of waiting, and creates need for a lot of waiting room space. It inconveniences the patients. It stresses out staff. Have you been able to make progress on some of that level loading front, or is that still to come?
It's definitely something still to come, but we have actually just started within this past month, really starting to focus more on the level loading because, like you mentioned, typically as you see majority of your patients early in the morning, and then the utilization kind of slows down throughout the day. Now, I think we're a little unique in a pediatric facility that for the younger kids and the babies, we do want them first thing in the morning because they are, can't eat or drink, and they can be fussy by the end of the day. If anybody's had young kids, you can understand what's that about.
Yeah.
But
there's a patient need there.
Yeah, there's definitely a need, but there is also the need, if we're running at 30% utilization in the afternoon, we need to start having a discussion about can we move some of the older patients or different types of procedures to the afternoon, and we're certainly getting to that point. Right now, we're starting to collect data on that room utilization, types of patients, but this is something we're actually taking more of a physician-led approach on it. So we as a department are sharing the information we need. Tracking performance by, type of procedure, physician, things like that, and then kind of acting more as the coach and the mentor to this committee, physician-led committee, and letting them really design this level loading process, and it be more of a peer-driven conversation than a lean efficiency expert. I'm using air quotations here.
Right.
For those that can't see, to design this, roll it out and force it down, the surgeon's throat. So we're in the process of it, but I think everyone understands the need of it. We've got a great group of surgeons here, anesthesiologists that understand, they're not just thinking about themselves or just the clinical side. They understand that we're here and we need to operate and utilize this facility in the most cost-effective, safe manner possible. And they really see both sides of it, and we're working to get to that level loading to the extent that we can. So maybe we'll have some answers for you here in 6 months, and we can talk about it in another podcast.
Yeah, and these are not easy problems to solve when there's long-standing ingrained habits, like you mentioned earlier. The room being assigned to a patient for the day, and the opportunity to try to ask in a non-threatening way, why are we doing this way? Well, we've always done it this way. Okay, why have we always done it this way? Not always easy conversations to have, but if you're able to engage people the right way, you're going to make progress, I think, like you're seeing.
Yeah, and I think all the stuff we're talking about, and I think all the stuff you read about lean sometimes can come off as deceptively easy, but it's not. It was tough conversations with going out to our top 40 surgeons and talking about the changes, hearing the good and the bad. It was boots on the ground, hearing everything, and I think that's really what it takes. It takes a lot of respect and listening and understanding their concerns, and this is going to go into the level loading, and then getting together with that group and saying, this is what we hear and this is what we want, how do we get there? So
yeah, well, I think you're right. And lean concepts can seem relatively simple, but once you get more than a handful of people involved and working with an organization, and that gets complicated very quickly.
It's very fast.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit about the lean design process and how that's been building upon lean process improvement, lean management systems. As I mentioned before, I'll have the excerpt from the book available on the blog post for this episode. Isaac, you have a poster. Am I able to share that as something that people can view?
Absolutely, and I think you mentioned I'll be speaking on this also at the upcoming SHS conference as well. People want to learn more about that.
Yes, and that was the other thing we were going to talk about here. Yeah, SHS, the Society for Health Systems, like I mentioned earlier. The upcoming, let me mention first, and I want to let you talk about some of your involvement here. The annual conference is going to be March 1st through 3rd. 2017 in Orlando. This is one of my favorite conferences of the year. I've attended for, I think, almost every year for 11. This will be maybe 12 years now, the whole time I've been in healthcare. Really, a lot of industrial engineers, not just IEs. You have nurses like your colleague Marty there. People who are applying the whole range of industrial engineering methods, lean, Six Sigma, simulation modeling, human factors and ergonomics. It's more than just a lean conference. It's a great place to come and learn and network. And Isaac, you've been involved in different ways. Can you talk about some of your participation and leadership role in the conference and the society?
Absolutely. I've been involved with the Institute of Industrial Engineers since undergrad, and it's been a great resource. But like you, as soon as I moved into the healthcare field, I joined Society of Health Systems and been involved with the conference. And this is one of my favorite conferences. One of my favorite things about this is not only the content, but you go back every year and it's like a reunion of family, friends that you've met over the years, people you can call on when you have, issues. Hey, Carl, I'm having issues with on-time starts. What are your thoughts on this? What have you done at your hospital? And they get back with you in, a couple hours. Just a great opportunity there. I've been involved with the Society of Health Systems through anywhere from, doing introductions on presentations to presentation reviews. And now I've had the great opportunity to serve on their board of directors and really hopefully move the society one step better towards the better. So it's been great, and it's great to be there every year and learn from the different groups. So I'm looking forward to talking about our work at Children's Hospital, and I'm also looking forward to our talk. Mark, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and it's not even so much our talk, but the session that Isaac and I are collaborating on. We're going to be leading a session or facilitating a session based on an approach called open space or open space technology, where the people who come to the room will brainstorm different topics that they want to talk about in different groups. And as they say in this approach, people vote with their feet of which discussion they want to be a part of. And there's Post-it notes and flip charts, and people brainstorm questions and topics within different topics. It's a really, I think, a very organic way of structuring and organizing discussion, things that the people in the room want to talk about. So I'm glad that the SHS conference is going to add that variety to it. The presentations and other sessions are great, but we hope people will, for one, come to the conference. Again, March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in Orlando. I'll have a link to the conference info here on the blog page for this episode as well. And then, come to our session. So, I'll be there. Isaac will be there. A lot of familiar faces, a lot of new faces. So come talk to us. We can maybe get together in the evening and debate the merits of Tennessee whiskey, Kentucky bourbon, and Texas whiskey, if they have any of our fine states product available. But love to make new friends. So come find us there, and we'll have some good discussion. But I think this will be a neat session. Some of my favorite things about these conferences is, again, meeting people, but it's the discussions we have in between sessions and the discussions we have at dinner, and that's what we're hoping to bring in addition to the open space, and really have these great discussions as a group on what's important to them. So it'll be an interesting experiment. I'm looking forward to it this year. Yeah, so thank you for pitching that idea, Isaac, and thank you for everything you're doing and what you're sharing to help inspire others to improve in healthcare. I really appreciate it, and thank you for being a guest here on the podcast today.
Oh, I'm honored, Mark, and it's always been a pleasure. As I made my switch to healthcare, I got hooked on your books, Lean Hospital, Healthcare Kaizen, and you've really helped me with the transition, and been kind of that mentor and that help along the way. So thanks for your opportunity, and always look forward to catching up.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And maybe last question: if people want to connect with you online or reach out, how do you suggest they do that?
Probably the easiest way is you can go to my website. It's Isaac B as in boy Mitchell, isaacbmitchell.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm sure Mark will give you all that information. So I'd love to make that connection and network, and hopefully meet soon. So.
All right. I hope people will take you up on that and find you online. Again, our guest has been Isaac Mitchell from East Tennessee Children's Hospital and the Society for Health Systems. Thank you so much again for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. This has been the Lean Blog Podcast. For Lean news and commentary updated daily, visit www.leanblog.org. If you have any questions or comments about this podcast, email Mark at leanpodcast@gmail.com.